Hi, what's going on? It's Rhonda Rashay Penrice. We thank you guys for joining us for the African American Film Critics Association Virtual Roundtable. We are pleased to have Karin Gist with us, who is an executive producer of the incredible Mike that's coming on Hulu. We have the star Trevante Rhodes, who plays Mike, and we also have Russell Hornsby, who plays Don King. Joining us from Atlanta, we have Ray Cornelius. We have from Miami, Ruben Peralta. From Indiana, we have Janita Davis. From Los Angeles, we have Joe Monroe. From Baltimore, is it Nancy Green? And from Philadelphia, we have Katia. And from, Katia Woods, our moderator. And then from New York City, we have Dana Abercrombie. So let's get started, y'all.
I want to live.
They call me a savage.
Whether I'm right.
Is that who I am?
I won't give up this dream of life that keeps me alive.
Yeah. No.
For somebody else, if I'm not right for me, I gotta be free. I just gotta be free.
You need to embrace your villainy.
Now I'm really gonna have some fun.
Jill Monroe from Access to the Life. I wanted to ask, Mike has such layers into it. We know his history, there's a lot of darkness into it, but there's a lot of comedy and comedic elements that are also brought into it naturally from Mike. So I wanted to know from you, Karin, as a creator, and then from Russell and Trevante, what was it like? How did you work out when to bring in those comedic elements into the story, and how to just to just keep it as the drama that it is and let it unfold it out? How did you balance the tone with those? Thank you.
The tone of the show was born out of Stephen's writing, which is very similar to the I, Tonya tone. And taking that approach and putting it into this series, one of the things we wanted to do was make sure that each episode was tight and almost felt like a boxing match, so that when you did stop to have those moments, those conversations between Mike and Don, or a moment where Mike is reflecting, or in some of those more important moments, that they would be more impactful if you were like, go, 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 and then stop to breathe and really take that in. So that was part of I think the music of the way we crafted the stories. And then that was aided by the way it was directed. And that was with Craig setting the tone for those first 4 episodes.
Thank you. And Trevante, what about you and your performance? I know it was in the script, but how did you balance out bringing that tone and then bringing it back to those elements and making sure that it didn't appear too over the top or sort of campy in that manner?
As a performer, I don't really look at it in that regard. I just, I guess it'll be a thing I say, but it really is just embodying a spirit for me. It really is. You try to educate yourself and arm yourself as best you can with as much information, as much aesthetic you can, and you just be present and you be the spirit. And that's what that was for me.
I think for myself, when we talk about aspects of humor and comedy, I think everyone can, kind of automatically look at Don King and look at him as a funny person, or somebody that you didn't take seriously because of his word usage, his voice being of a higher octave or what have you. But I think what really you have to point out with Don is that I think that everything with him was intentional, and so I think he wanted to keep the world off balance. And a lot of things with Don was done with a wink and a nod, because he didn't mind being the one that was made fun of, the butt of the joke, because he knew he was getting the money, and that was his objective. I in my research, in my preparation for this, in a lot of the videos and interviews, you never saw Don get mad. You never saw him take a tone that was in a darker, but only one time, and that was with Jack Newfield when The Shame on Boxing of America came out, and he was offended by his portrayal of him in that book. And that was the only time you ever saw Don have a curse word towards somebody or get mad. Other than that, he kept a smile on his face because he knew that being a Black man, that everybody was going to try to get under his skin. Everybody was going to try to invalidate him and his world, his actions, and everything else. And people were just going to be coming for him. And at every turn, what everybody said about him, how they commented on his vernacular or his hair or whatever, he always kept a smile. And I think people, in that, he kept everyone off balance. And he didn't mind being the butt of the joke, or he didn't mind being made fun of, because at the end of the day, he was winning.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Ruben from Miami. I was raised in the 90s and I saw Tyson fighting so many times and he looks so scary and everything. But we're still talking about Mike Tyson. What do you think that is so important about this person that we're still talking about all his ups and downs in his life, and now he became like a person who is full of wisdom, and he's spreading this wisdom that is the opposite the experience that we had back in the 90s. Trevante, you can start.
So your question is, why do I think that he's still
trending? Why do you think he's still important after 30 years of ups and downs in his life?
I think because the quality of his spirit mixed with the trouble and the trials and the tribulations that he had to surpass in order to be at peace, let alone be successful in the world. And I think, we love the rags to riches story because we find ourselves somewhere, I guess, on that scale. You have to. And with Mike Tyson being who he is, he's literally been at the bottom and at the top. And that's how you find peace, having had such wisdom. And so I think that's why, man, everybody can learn something from him if you pay attention.
Yeah, I agree. I think, just because it's been 30 years and people are still talking about this man and how big his life was. And he's a very complicated, polarizing figure. So you have people that love him, people that don't like him, people who think of him only as a rapist, people who think of him as a hero. So because there's so much complexity in it, I think that there's always some kind of relevance to that story. And there's always conversations that we can continue to have that we're still having today around a lot of the things that happened in his life. So I think not only is it interesting to, tell this larger than life story, but the stuff that we're discussing in the story is still relevant today. And we wanted to make sure we were pulling those conversations out as we were trying to give you guys some art as well.
Ray Cornelius up front inside Atlanta's entertainment industry. Good to see you, Russell, Trevante, and Karin. Love the episodes. You almost made me cry this morning. This is about a real person. This isn't someone that is made up. This is a real life. This is someone that we've known for quite some time. So for Karin, Russell, and Trevante, how did you approach, for you, Karin, in telling this story? Because this is someone who is still living, and like I said, that we know. And then for you as actors, how do you approach your characters that are real people that have lived, we know their legacies and their lives? And is it different from the way that you approach individuals that are not real people?
Yes, as a writer, yes, it's different because you can make anything up and you can, just have fun with motivations, and it's like your own little dollhouse when you're creating character. And I think with Mike, We wanted to be respectful of his life, but we wanted to tell the full breadth of so far what his life has been. And so, and we also wanted, again, as I was saying earlier, just to make sure we're staying relevant in our conversations that we're kind of shining a light on. So one of the approaches was to make sure we researched his life and made sure we were getting information from all different sources. When I interviewed the writers for the writers' room, we had all writers of color. I wanted to make sure, one of the questions I asked even in the interviews, like, what makes you excited about this project and what scares you about this project? What are your opinions about Mike? So that we were having like robust conversations in the room, and we could find our way to make sure if we are saying this is an unbiased story where we're not pointing a finger, we're not trying to redeem him, but we're also not trying to villainize him. How can we make sure that, you know, that's a gut check for ourselves as writers, as a team of writers. So, you know, research, making sure that we had robust conversation, and then making sure that we were as respectful but honest in our storytelling as we could be at any given time. And then, you know, relying on our amazing cast to pull it off. And they did beautifully.
You know, for me, I always, I have to start from the beginning. You know, I look at, you know, not having a lot of material to work from for Don in terms of his history. All I had was the biography to start. And then you're looking at a lot of videos and YouTube clips and stuff like that. But what I really looked at, I said, well, where did Don come from? You know, you're talking about Cleveland, Ohio, he ran numbers. This is in the early to mid 50s. Now we're talking about jazz and bebop. And so what I looked at, as I said, how did he get his cadence? How did the vocal quality, right? And so what I started to do was I started with jazz, with music. Where was bop? You know, where was jazz and what was the musicality? So when you think about it, when we go back in history and what was the music of the day, what was the music of the age? So if we're looking at jazz and bop and movement and everything like that, and then we're looking at and so when we start listening to that, right, then it takes the cadence, begins to go higher and higher and higher, and then it's shorter, and then it's clipped and everything like that. And so also you're looking at a man who was a street urchin you know what I mean, they would say. And so then now you're looking at that hustle mentality, right? And so when we're hustling, we're on the street, especially in that time, brothers are talking quick because we ain't got time to be delaying and making, you know, long. So it's like, hey, baby, this is what I'm doing. This is what I got. This is what I'm about to do. Nigga, where's my money? Motherfucker, do you have it? Where's my shit, nigga? You need to get up on my shit. Give me my money, motherfucker. I need it now. I need it today. And that's a derivative of the music. Right. So I looked at that, right, as and then I built on that. I said, so that's where his cadence came from. That's where the vocal quality came from, that high pitch thing like that, right? And then you look at the theatricality of who he is, right? So Don King is now, he's this carnival barker, right? But so what do we do back in our day, and what have we done constantly? We've held court. Nigga, tell this motherfucker who I am. These motherfuckers right here, you better tell this nigga right here who I am, who am I? But if you don't know, you better ask somebody, motherfucker. Hey, ask the question, what's going on? So we hold court. There's a theatricality in everything we do because we got to let niggas know. We got to let motherfuckers know who the fuck we are, right? And so that there is that, because you got to go big or take your ass home. Right? So what are we doing? What's that whole thing? We selling wolf tickets now. We motherfuckers is talking shit. And if you don't know how to sell some wolf tickets coming up in the hood or whatever, and know how to talk some shit, well, motherfucker, you better get you a job at GM, motherfucker. That's what you know what I mean? So I built him on that and who we are historically. And I looked at, so I took it from the Don King that we had, where we ended up. And I just slowly peeled the layers and took it from the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, prison, what that did for him, what he was reading, all of those things, the mispronunciation of words. Well, we've been doing that since, you know, the days of old when knights were bold and paper wasn't invented. You know what I'm saying? So we can we could got some marbles in our mouths and all that kind of stuff, but we can still, you know, be bright and talk smooth and slick and all that shit, right? So that's what I get. That's where I start from the bottom and I just build him back up, or I deconstructed it from where he ended in the 90s. And so, you know, and then me being being an actor of the theater, I love those moments to be bigger than life, you know, to sort of break out of our shell, to take the mask off or put the mask on and then see what we have. And so with this script, I was able for Don, there were moments where you kept the mask on the whole time. And then there were smaller moments where you took the mask off and you got a chance to reveal what humanity that he had inside him and who he really was, and some of his beliefs and his feelings that he held deep inside and suppressed that we don't often see because we don't think Black folks niggas are human, you know, but we know we are. So you got to let that out in small doses, but it's there.
For me, man, I was really fortunate in the sense that Mike Tyson is such a, obviously, relevant and massive presence in the world. So I had a lot of food to really nourish my curiosity with. And again, for me, it's a spirit thing, man. Kind of, in all honesty, reflective of Russell's, I guess, answer just now. That's reflective of a Don King answer. So his spirit is there. That's what you see. Like Russell said it a bit earlier, you know, as creatives and, you know, performers, we tend to, if we're lucky enough, we get to gravitate towards things that are very reflective of our inherent intelligence, you know what I mean? So I just did my thing, man.
That's it. And he did that. You did that.
Hi, I'm Nancy Green with Film Critique. And I wanted to say I really enjoyed this so much. I thought it was very, very layered. I loved how there was the theater aspect and breaking the fourth wall. And I wanted to know with how complex, especially both Don King and Mike Tyson are, how did you approach that? Because there's this very sort of, you know, especially now more recently, Mike Tyson's very thoughtful, he's very insightful. And then you have Don King, which I find curious that he's really kind of hated. But at the same time, there's this essence of, there was a scene where he was sitting on the bed and Mike Tyson was sleeping, and he starts talking about how they want to pull him down, how they want to pull Tyson down, and how he has to be a king. So I wanted to know like how you approached that complexity and kept it throughout, because all of those different parts are very layered.
Well, I can talk about it just quickly from the writing aspect. I wanted to make sure, and it's funny that Russell was just saying this about Don, because I wanted to make sure Don had humanity and he wasn't just this, you know, this one-dimensional kind of, you know, loudmouth that people kind of think he is. You know, there's a man underneath that, an experience, a life underneath that. And I really wanted to make sure that the relationship between Don and Mike had all of those complexities, almost like a brother relationship or a father-son relationship. And so for me, one of the things in approaching the Don, that building that relationship, which we really start to see in episode, I think 4, you were just speaking about that scene, which I love. That scene is one of my favorites in the series. But you know, I in the beginning, when we first started talking about, you know, the men who were influential in Mike's life, and a lot of times Cuss gets all this, he gets all the glory. You know, he's the one that kind of plucked Mike out and kind of made him a star. And I wanted to make sure that one, Cuss D'Amato, you know, he was kind of down and out in his career at the time when he found Mike. So he needed something from Mike too. And that part never gets really talked about. He's just kind of the nurturer, right? The white savior of it all. And to me, I feel like there is, you know, just as much richness in the relationship between Don and Mike. And I think there was a mirror to the two of them. And as much as they, butted heads, and there was still that connection that we wanted to make sure we were mining through the storytelling and telling like another love story between these two men who had a lot in common, trying to achieve their version of the American dream. So as writers, we were just trying to make sure that that relationship that we gave it enough attention. And then the two of them beautifully portrayed it again.
Got to give a shout out to my dog, Darnell Brown, the writer of that dynamic, because he related it to his relationship with his father. And he's big on mental health advocacy. So a lot of that energy and that kinetic energy that you feel, he was writing from this like a beautiful place. So, and then, as a performer, getting the opportunity to jump in a space with somebody like Russell and really box, you get to play, and it's, you get to play. And so it's fun. And so developing that, I guess, comfort and fluidity, I guess, just came from, I don't know, being able to jump in a space with somebody who's great, I guess.
Thank you, brother. Likewise. And I think that, as actors, we all look for the minutia. We look for the grace notes. We look for the layers. If you fancy yourself an actor, or as Trevante has been saying this morning, an artist, we're not just, people who say lines. We are artists that live in the moment. So we're living out, these characters, right? We're living them out loud. And so for me, I had read everything. When I saw episode 4, I breathed a sigh of relief, because I knew that would give me the freedom and the latitude to go all the way out and really allow Don King to be as big as he needed to be, because we were going to get that quiet moment, that moment of humanity, that moment where you really see that father and son dynamic play out, and that tenderness, right, which is very rare. So, and I looked at it as, there is no right nor wrong, there is only truth. And so what we're trying to do is tell these moments honestly. And so, I think for Don, he never looked at himself as a villain. He looked at himself as a man who's taking advantage of an opportunity. And his common refrain was, only in America. And so if only in America, if a white man can do this to any nigga on the block, well, if I'm smart enough and dynamic and have the wherewithal and the je ne sais quoi, if you will, to get it done, well, why the fuck can't it be me? And so we look at Don as this villain of what you've done to black men, or what he did to Tyson, or whatever. No. He did what you do, only in America. And so, I mean, and so that's what, when I looked at that start at episode 4, I could go from there out and give him the freedom to do and be who he really was, or is, excuse me.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it was beautifully done, everyone. Thank you.
And my question is for Karin. This is absolutely superb. And what I really loved about this is that, yes, this is about a boxer, but it is so much more than just boxing. So what was very interesting, it seemed like every time that there was an emotional moment, it switched to a quick cut of a boxing scene, or Mike Tyson throwing a punch in the ring. Was that on purpose? Can you explain the messaging and the meaning behind that? Is it meant to be like a cathartic moment for Mike Tyson?
Which moment? Just in general, some of the more emotional moments? Yeah, and well, what we wanted to do is, of course, highlight the boxing. He's the greatest boxer. But we also wanted to highlight that there was a person in there, and there was an life experience in there, and there was emotion. And one of the things that we wanted to do is make sure that we were telling that full story from, him being a bullied little kid how he fell into Cuss's kind of control, how he was told from a very early age that violence was the answer, that to be a monster, so we wanted to make sure that we were putting all of those things in front of him, and then, but we never really get to have him talk about what that felt like. And a lot of times when you see, you know, some of the clips on YouTube or whatever, you know, it's Mike as Mike, you know, being Mike, it just kind of that bravado that, you know, you never get to see those quiet moments. And we tried to dramatize that and try to give him some humanity, knowing that, you know, Trevante would have to take that in and find those within himself. But that was very intentional to kind of stand still with him, stand still with a man that we don't ever really get to do that with, and try to find this in this very polarizing person, some relatable nuggets, you know, for everybody to see, oh, he's just like me. I might not have this whole experience, but like I can understand what he felt like in that moment, or at least try to understand it, and not just from the sound bites that we have been given and fed over the years, but who was this specific Black man, and how did his life, how did the systems in America, how did that all build him up to be a certain person and respond to things in a certain way. And, you know, I'm glad that you connected with him, because I think, you know, people have very specific opinions about who he is and what he was and what he did. And we wanted to kind of, you know, have people question that a little bit, not redeem him, but have them question, you know, is there more beneath the surface?
And I think maybe from a technical standpoint, technical and creative standpoint, to kind of, I guess, answer how we would go from one thing to the next. I think from a creative standpoint, the guys wanted to reflect as much as you can a Tyson fight. So